I wanted to have a bit of a discussion here with you about the differences between being trauma aware and trauma informed. Now, let me set the scene. I've received phone calls from people over the last couple of weeks. So I still get some people wanting to self-refer to my rehabilitation practice. I haven't taken my website down. I know the practice isn't operating, but people see and find Purple Co and they go, I want that service. And it's interesting to me that I've had a conversation with somebody this week, and I've had this same conversation with another person a couple of weeks ago. And that was where their expectations of working with a trauma-informed practitioner were not met. These are client expectations of working with trauma-informed therapists. So I actually asked the person who I spoke to most recently what their expectations were when it came to being trauma-informed. Now, this person had been involved in a fairly horrible motor vehicle accident. They were terrified of being in any sort of road vehicle, so they couldn't drive, they don't want to be a passenger, they're not using buses, they don't want to use rideshare services. And in the part of Australia that this person lives in, that is making their life incredibly difficult. There's a lot of things this person isn't able to access or participate in because she's pretty much shut herself away. And it's not as simple as just getting a referral and going and seeing a practitioner and off she goes. Now, this woman, I said to her, because it was a woman, I asked her, I said, well, what are the things that you're expecting? What would you like to see happen in a trauma-informed method of working with you? And I must admit, what she was asking for was not unreasonable. So then I asked her, well, what was turning up for you when you were referred to this rehabilitation agency to help you, well, eventually return to work, but how about leave the house and be able to drive first? What was going on? And what she was describing for me was somebody who was aware that she had experienced trauma aware. But then what she went on to explain is that this trauma awareness had not changed the way this clinician was working with her. Therefore, that clinician should not be saying that the way they work is trauma-informed. Because when you become trained and skilled and integrate trauma-informed practice into your already existing practice, the way you work changes. Everything from the way you onboard a client, you greet a client, you meet a client, you work with a client, it changes. And that's what true trauma-informed work actually does. It means that we are really representing our knowledge of how trauma turns up for the client, for the person sitting in front of us, and how we need to augment the way we are practicing, just like we would if we had a person turn up to our office in a wheelchair and we needed to access a ramp for them. Or we chose not to meet them in the office so that that access issue didn't present itself. Or we might have a person turn up with a severe TBI and we change the way we are reminding them about services and the way we are connecting with them during the session, and we're constantly checking for fatigue and we're constantly looking for behavioral cues. That brain injury knowledge is informing the way we practice. But exactly the same thing needs to occur if we're going to say we're trauma-informed. Because unfortunately now what's happened is these two people that I have spoken to have actually been re-traumatized by these other rehabilitation professionals who didn't meet their expectations around what it meant to be trauma-informed. And I think we're actually going to start seeing more of this as clients, people in the general community become increasingly literate and aware of trauma, its effects, and what they can ask of us as treating health professionals or rehabilitation providers. Whew. So I say all of this not to discourage you, but to say please get educated. Please get supervision around what it means to be truly trauma-informed. How is it going to change your practice? This is not just a marketing tactic. And if you're working for an agency or an employer that is just doing this as a marketing tactic, saying that we all know about trauma, That is trauma aware, not trauma informed. And we actually need to be applying trauma informed principles into our work, like the examples that I gave you, to make sure that clients are getting the best possible access. It's actually an access issue, because if we don't meet clients where they're at, they won't turn up, they won't be engaged, they won't participate in treatment, they will continue to self-blame and shame. And our institutions, particularly our insurance institutions, make it very, very easy for them to be blamed for not participating, when the issue could actually be us, in that we are incorrectly reflecting back to the world how it is that we are actually working. So please get educated, get trained, get supervised. Education will give you knowledge. Training will give you knowledge and some practical skills. Supervision is where you're going to integrate this into your practice. Trauma-informed work means the way that you work with that client will be different to the way you work with a different client. If it's not, then congratulations, you're trauma-aware. Please don't be pretending to be trauma-informed.